How do you encourage students, especially at the college level, who maybe have not had a routine of practicing? How do you introduce that to them as like it's more than just music? It's about learning to learn.
It really depends on the particular student, particular, it depends on what their goals are as well. If it's really just, just like take some time away from their STEM studies, if they're in STEM, then it's maybe, I actually find that in those cases, sometimes those learners are more motivated because they know that once they're done with that, then they're going back to, their work with the other classes. The part about developing a routine is it can be a little complicated, not super complicated, but I think just realizing that certain routines are good and certain routines are not so helpful is a good first step, right? I mean, there's this idea that I think sometimes, if you're just kind of sitting in the practice room and you're, playing and, playing and somehow this idea that you just kind of play like 3 hours, 4 hours straight, that's going to help you get further, and it may to some extent, but it may not be the most efficient, right? So I think efficient practice is key here. And by efficient practice, there are a couple of efficiencies that one can use. So for one thing, I try to get students when they're doing piano exercises, take rests, right? Frankly, so every 30 minutes, just take a 3-minute rest, whether it be a water or a restroom or even just, playing on social media or anything, just take some rest in order to get refreshed, because cognitively, we will tire out after being at the piano for that long. And it may not be 30 minutes, 3 minutes every 30 minutes. It could be, say, if it's better for you, 5 minutes for every 60 minutes. And of course, this is important too for physiological reasons. You do want to have good habits to avoid other things down the line, like tendonitis and repetitive strain injury and so forth. I think a balance between like practice, sort of the technique practice, working on whether it's scales or chords or double thirds or, just working on those things and then moving on to repertoire. I think that's something that people could think intentionally on how they want to balance working on sort of basic skills and working on more applied literature. So I think there are various things that people can do too.
Do you think that time frame changes? For instance, I like to use percentages. Like if we think of an hour lesson being as 100%, do you think of like a beginner lesson being 60% technique, 40% application, or maybe an intermediate being 50-50? I'm making up these numbers, but do you have that kind of formula at the back of your mind, or is it just super person dependent?
I think it's super person dependent, and I think it also depends on the goals of the particular person or the particular project they're working on. There are certain techniques that you want to do in preparation for certain pieces, right? So if there are certain pieces where you're doing a lot of octave technique, then maybe it's good to just, get some octaves down earlier on before trying to attempt those pieces. There's also like this in between. I've been making a binary between really rudimentary exercises, the things you find in like Hanon or those exercises that we learn as part of our routine, and also do the repertoire. But I think there's also this middle ground, right? So there are times when there are really difficult passages in the piece you're learning, and sometimes it's just really useful to drill those particular passages, do it slowly, do it in rhythm, and then work it up to tempo. And I mean, that's a type of drill practice that can be really helpful as well.